Hey everyone, my name is Riley and this video is an EverWebinar review. In this video, we will be taking a look at what EverWebinar actually is and what it does, the features of EverWebinar and also the price. So to start out, what actually is EverWebinar and what makes it different to all of the other webinar software out there? Now, the main selling point of EverWebinar is the scalability that you can get with this. Usually the main bottleneck to having a webinar and using this as the main point to sell your product is time. Like, you have to be there, you have to physically sit down and record the webinar, respond to the chat, make your presentation over and over and over and over again. And if you stop, then the money that you are earning from your webinar is obviously going to dry up. EverWebinar completely solves this issue because what it does is it allows you to record a one-time pre-recorded webinar and then make it appear like it is a live webinar. Now, the first thing that we are going to touch on is the price. And if you would like to sign up to EverWebinar, I will leave my affiliate link in the description that will take you over to this page and will allow you to get a 14-day trial of EverWebinar for only $1. So we can start right here for 14 days on any of these plans for just $1. But aside from that, this is not the cheapest software in the world. In comparison, this is Webinar Jam, and this is a webinar software where you have to actually host the live webinar. As you can see, we can get started right here for just $39 a month, compared to $99 right here on EverWebinar. Something I should also add is, if you can see right here, we have different plans, right, for different amounts. Whereas EverWebinar is just one plan. There's not a tiered pricing system where you unlock different things. This is all the same. As you can see, all of the features are in all of the plans. The only differences between these plans is the billing period. So $99 is billed monthly, yearly is $499, so you save like 50% if you go yearly, and then biennial is a little bit more of a discount. With something like EverWebinar, the more attendees you get, you go up each of these plans. But you can start for a lot cheaper. As I say though, the only difference is that with Webinar Jam, you have to physically sit there and actually record the webinar. So I think it is definitely worth it paying an extra, $60 per month to just record this one time and put this live. So if we log into EverWebinar right here, this is the section where you can create webinars. We then have analytics, where we can view all of the analytics from the webinar. So we can see the webinar length for the pre-recorded webinar that I've set up. We can see the average watch time. We can see how many people watched the full webinar. We can see how many people signed up and registered. And down here, we can see the sales, both from the live room when people are watching and your webinar appears to be live, and also from the replays. So what we can do, if I go into edit this webinar that I've already created, right here on this source video, this is where we can upload your pre-recorded webinar. So you record it one time. Usually it's best to upload this to YouTube, and then you just grab the YouTube link, put it in right here, set the duration of your video, and that's it. Like, you don't have to sit down and constantly be recording webinars. You record it once, upload it to YouTube, drag it right here into EverWebinar, and that's pretty much it. We can also go down here and have webinar moderators. So this is, I'll show you these settings in a second and these features, but what you can do is you can actually allow people to comment on the webinar. So even though it's not live, you can still have a live chat. If you do, you might want some members of your team to moderate the webinar, make sure nobody is saying anything like horrible or nothing crazy is going on in the chat, and you can add them all right here. Now, specifically when we are talking about your webinar being live, the main thing that shows if something is live is going to be the live chat, right? People actively being able to see the live chat, them being able to comment themselves, seeing you reacting to the comments that are coming in. This really sells the idea that this webinar is live. So down here in live chat box, what we can do is we can either disable chat and just turn this off entirely, or we can enable live chat and we can pre-configure comments to come in as if the event was live. So down here, I've just set up 3 comments right here, and these all say what? So in this example, I would set these up. So I know 10 seconds in, everybody is going to be commenting what? So what I would do is when I go ahead to record my webinar, at like 8 seconds in, maybe, I would say, just to make sure that we are live and everything is good, everybody type number 1 in the chat. And then on the webinar, I can see these comments are coming in. So I can say, we see a 1 there from James, we see a 1 there from Sam, Nick gives a big 1 right there. And the people who are watching the webinar will be able to see this down the chart and then see that you are reacting to this. So we could go in and maybe I'm planning out my webinar and 3 minutes in, I want to ask people what their goals are. So I would go here, 3, and then we can make the comment look like it is coming from a guy called Jacob. And then the chat line, we can say, I want to quit my job and retire my parents, just like that. And then we can click on add. And 3 minutes in, this chat line is going to appear. So like maybe 2 minutes 55, I say everybody comment their goals. And then I can say, Jacob says, I want to quit my job and retire my parents. So this section really just sells the idea that the webinar is live. And this is the live chat box section. Another thing that you can do is display the number of attendees. So in here, we can choose not to display the attendee count. We can choose the actual number of attendees in the room. We can have a fixed simulation where it just shows a number at the top. So I could say 567, and it's going to keep that at the top the whole time. Or we can have a dynamic simulation where the peak right here is going to be 567, but it might start out as like 450. And then we go up, we reach the peak right here. And then for the rest of the webinar, it's slowly going to come down right here. So once again, this is really just to sell the idea that the webinar is live. What we can also do is if we go to schedules, we can just set up how often we are going to be running this webinar. So as you can see, I have one webinar going live at 9 a.m. every day. Second webinar, 9:30, third webinar at 10, and you can set them all up right here. Another thing is, okay, I'll just save these changes. We can go to registration, and in here we can customize all of these registration templates. So as an example, this is the default template that you can kind of see in the background. So this is the default template right here. And I went in and customized it so that my template now looks like this. So there should be a video right here, but I privated it on YouTube, which makes sense. But then we can go in, customize all of these areas, change the text to say what we want to say. And it's very easy to do. Like, you don't have to add in elements and drag them around. All you have to do is click into edit, edit the text. Click here, we can edit the colors, we can edit the color of this button and make all of the changes right here. We can also split test these registration pages where we would essentially create 2 different ones. And then we can choose the percentage of traffic going to each. So I could say the first one, which is A, gets 50% of the traffic, and so does B. And then I can look in analytics and see which one performs the best, which one of these landing pages gets the most signups. That's the one I want to use. So we can do that right there. We can also charge. So I don't know many people that do this, but if you want to create a webinar that people pay for, rather than a free webinar to sell a product, then you can set this up right here and people will just pay. They will get access to the webinar and you can charge for that. In terms of email marketing, when somebody signs up, like to remind them to sell them products, things like this, we can either go through, and I prefer to use EverWebinar Mail, which is the pre-built autoresponder inside of EverWebinar, and it's going to send them out, if I just pull this down right here, from this email, webinarinfo@webinar.net, and it will just show your name as the sender name. So you can choose that if you would like, or alternatively, if you already have an email marketing software that you are using, you can integrate this into EverWebinar. So we have like Aweber, Keep, GetResponse, iContact. Some aren't on here. MailerLite, for example, is a big email marketing tool that isn't involved in here, that you can't integrate. But with any of these, you can. And then third-party tracking systems is just for like Google ads, for Facebook ads, if you want to be tracking these and you are running ads. This section is very important as well under live, which is live content. This is where you're actually going to sell your product. So if I just remove this right here, what we can do is we can choose whereabouts in the webinar we want to add the pop-up and allow people to buy the product that we are selling. So we can just go add to event, product offer, and then in here we add all of the information about the product. We can choose when in the webinar this product is going to be offered. So let's say this is a 2-hour webinar. At 1 hour 30, that's when I want to unlock this and let people start purchasing the product. So those are the important features and the features that you need to know about inside of EverWebinar. But if you would like a full tutorial showing you step by step how to actually set a webinar up, I will leave that link in the description. I already created that tutorial.